First of all, I would like to thank Great Citizen Institute and the organizers for giving me the opportunity to be part of this incredible event. And second, it's my very unfortunate, it was unfortunate for me not to be there all the time. I was teaching all day, so I missed all this conversation. It's sad I wasn't here and missed all this beautiful stuff. I'm a social movement person, sociology person, and I talk more about people, and there's some pictures and people. I don't talk a lot about architecture, but it may be there. So the title of my talk, Tahrir Square, Cairo, the Making of the Egyptian Revolution of 2011. And this is my question. In what ways Tahrir Square and its location in Cairo made an impact on the Egyptian Revolution of 2011? A very general background. I did my ethnography and archival work for my dissertation, which I defended a year ago, almost a year ago, in the Department of Sociology, University of Michigan, about the Tahrir, about the Egyptian Revolution. And I was fortunate at that time to be able to go in Tahrir. I missed the first week, but I was able to jump in a plane and go from Ann Arbor to Tahrir. So I did ethnography, I did interviews, I stayed for 2 months and a half, and then I went to another round. So this is the general picture. I'm working now on updating this to things that happened after the revolution, and at the end I will raise, I have some thoughts about that, and I would love any feedback or questions. So this is what I did for methodology. Did ethnography. I went to 2 trips, 2011 and 2012. The first one was 2 months and a half, and the second time was 6 months. I had 106 interviews in 2011 and 2012. Nothing new, but I'm in touch with activists and many people, but it's not updated stuff. Also did the documentary and historical research, leaflets, political organizations, political parties, youth coalition of the revolutions, and so forth. So I have a positionality. I moved to the US in 2004. I grew up in Cairo. I'm connected to many activists, and this is a picture of a friend of mine who's a dentist and professor of dentistry in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, and we saw each other in Tahrir, in the Venice of Million. But this is just the background of the story, the picture, but I have a unique positionality. I'm in touch with people, emotionally, it's a touching story. So this is the same day of Austin Mubarak during the day. We're tired, lacking sleep, worried and anxious and excited and all of this stuff. But then also this is the day of Austin Mubarak at night. We were celebrating and we didn't know what was coming. So it's, I have strong positionality and tons of stories about how this affected my writing, my thinking, my accessibility, and also emotional burden. I will not talk about that here, but just, so we know all the story about Tahrir Square and its significance, or it becoming central, or why it becoming central. This is the famous Tahrir Square, one of the so-called 1 million person rally in Tahrir. Everything is packed up, you can't move. We have friends here and there, you can't just even, it will take you 5-6 hours or forever just to move from one part to another. Cell phones were not working for 5 days, but even when you're back, not network. It's difficult to really, because there is a burden on the network. So just with bodies and people. And tents scattered. So theoretically speaking, when I started to think about spatiality and the Egyptian revolution, there's nothing as such called a spatiality. There is no literature on this explicitly, but there's some things. Some sociologists and historical sociologists talk about revolutions, the Vendée, the Paris Commune, the French Revolution, how things, opening space in a broad sense, and Paris versus other cities. So that was there, but also there is a new emerging literature in spacing contentious politics. And this is very important. And there's some stuff on Tiananmen Square and other things, and it's is important. William Junior Sewell and Charles Tilly and others wrote about that, and there was a special issue in the journal Mobilization. It's an important journal in sociology about social movements in the year 2000 about space in contentious politics, and some few edited volumes about space in contentious politics. Very important stuff. I will not talk about this theoretical part. So I will talk about 2 points, Cairo and then Tahrir. And I have some pictures. So when I start to think about Cairo, it's impossible and for me to give justice to talk about Cairo, this gigantic city, the role of Cairo in the Egyptian revolution. But first of all, we think about Cairo like major highlights. When we think about the city that has at least an average, there's no official statistics, but at least 10 million roughly living in Cairo, but during the day this can be 20 million people. Cosmopolitan city full of contradictions, neoliberal time, very populous, all these things which shape the uprising, of course, and feed into the uprising. I will show you one picture and then I will give examples from stories and some things, anecdotes and pictures from what happened and about Cairo's impact in the revolution. So this is the skyscraper. It's by the River Nile. This is 5-7 minutes from, literally from Tahrir. This is tons of this stuff. So entire informal housing, slums, and skyscrapers by Tahrir. And there's a saying that many would say, like activists and others, and middle-class people, that you can't see the Nile in Cairo. You only can see the Nile if you're in a hotel or a fancy casinos, but ordinary people can't. There's accessibility, or you have to rent a boat or something. So this is by the Nile and closer to Tahrir. And there's a story about gentrification and removing this, all this area. It's a very huge space that so in other words, there is many major neighborhoods are literally like this, the contradiction between one side and another side. The super new liberalized and the super like impoverished slum-like areas. And there's lots of mobilization about this place now. It's Ramlet Bulak in Cairo, and I will later talk about how this was crucial to the uprising. But just also one other picture from the same area. Those people were trying to resist. They are being. This is after the revolution, by the way. This site, this specific picture. But there's many attempts of evacuating them by force, and they resisted, and they were beaten and taken to police stations, and it's ongoing battle. And even though they got court orders to stop the evacuation plans, court orders were not respected, and violence would continue. Okay, so 3 things I would highlight about Cairo and the revolution. This is simplistic. What I'm trying to say, I will not go into tons of debates or discussions. There's big debates amongst people who are writing about the Egyptian revolution. I'm sure from the western side of the angle, people are talking about the Tahrir and the social media. There are tons of other debates, but one of the debates about urban or rural, the Egyptian, where is the countryside in the Egyptian revolution? Of course, we only saw the middle class people with iPhones in Tahrir. But there's some big debates about urban. The other side of this discussion is that the revolution was only in Cairo or not? Since we are presuming that it's only Tahrir was the center of the story. So my assessment or my answer to this is, if we talk about the uprising in the narrow sense, as the so-called or the famous 18 days of the uprising, we can say, roughly speaking, that Cairo was crucial part of the story. But it's not fair, and it's not, and this is simplistic because revolution doesn't have a clear beginning and end. But Cairo was crucial part of the story because of Tahrir and because of the populous aspect of Cairo. And that's what we'll talk about now. So one thing about the Cairo being a private city is critical mass. There were a few days where there is fewer protests and then cracking down by the police, but in January 28, 2011, and starting this idea, like, and I asked organizers from the Youth Coalition of the Revolution and others, like, how do you have the gut of calling for a 1 million person rally? Why you think it's really? And he said, just it was a bold move from our part. We thought people are angry and there's violence in the streets. We never imagined this would happen, but it happened. So, so Cairo was crucial in this iconic image, Tahrir, million person, 1 million calling, and there's actually 1 million person rallies during those famous 18 days. So that was crucial. So the idea about private cities, and there's some discussions about Paris Commune and the role of big cities or capital city, not only capital city necessarily, but populous cities too in uprisings. Some old discussions, Mark Traggart, historical sociologist, wrote about Paris in this sense. And actually some other, Elis Goldberg from University of Washington, political scientist emeritus, wrote about Cairo and this private city. This was crucial, and I realized this holds true from my discussions with it happened, million person appearing, useful geography, and I will talk in two senses about this useful geography. So all these contradictions, and it's not, Cairo is not one city. Historically, I'm not talking even about the architecture, just historically about the Islamic Cairo, Coptic Cairo, New Liberal Cairo, Old Cairo, or it's tons of Cairos. So there's no organization, like streets and big rallies, big avenues. This is not the way. You can see tons of different styles and different models of architecture and organizations in the neighborhoods. So this gives a room to maneuver between police and protesters. And actually, one of the stories that some of you, if you followed news and analysis correctly, that there was the major protest planned for the first day of uprisings, and because they know that the police is monitoring, so they had known sites, and there's some sites only known to key organizers. And he chose one of the key rallies that moved to Tahrir was from an area called Bulak al-Dakrur, different than this Bulak, and it's actually more than 1 hour, 20 minutes walk rally to come to Tahrir. And he started there, and they were able to have like 20 to 30,000 or more, like different assessments. It was because by surprise. So they had this maneuvering, the layout of the road helped them, and also that's the aspect of the surprise and getting more population to participate. So this was very crucial in this. I moved into the marginalized communities. There's two things here. So because most of the discussion was about Tahrir, and activists from day 2, 3 realized that Tahrir is the center of the story. So actually, but many battles happened outside Tahrir, and in these battles, while the police had a plan to protect the square and block the major roads to Tahrir, so actually there were many other battles happened behind, in the front of most police stations. And those marginalized communities, those impoverished, and all the communities affected by new liberalism and others, were crucial. And many of them had personal stories with torture and with the police. They had major battles, so they defeated the police, so there was no police forces were not capable of reaching out to those who were in Tahrir to help. So there was, police were defeated in a sense, especially twice in the background and in Tahrir. Those people were very crucial. And of course, this simplistic narrative about the non-violence, peaceful, I will not go into this, but there was battles with rocks and Molotov cocktails. But people use this as a defense, mostly against the police. But storming police stations was violent. People, marginalized communities, these were incredible battles, undocumented, and nobody talked about this stuff. Only like activists, Egyptian circles, activists who are talking about these stories who are what happened outside Tahrir and specifically on all those poor communities with the police. And the second part of the story is street vendors. And I will show one example, but this is street vendors played important role in the Egyptian revolution. Believe it or not, like it's not major. Of course, a revolution is an overdetermined big historical event. It's impossible to talk about reasons or processes or outcomes to attribute them to one cause, about something about the economic crisis or the regime or the defection of military or violence, tons of things going on. So in terms of political actions and collective action, and also street kids, which I'm not talking about it here, they were very crucial in the battles. Street kids, and that's what I'm not talking about, but street vendors were very crucial. How is that Tahrir Square literally, and all this downtown Cairo became, and closer to the downtowns, very new liberalized. And lots of old stores, but also new liberalized. So actually police, to seize the space and to block, ordered all the restaurants and food and delis to close, to prevent food going to protesters in Tahrir. So actually all the big chains, new liberalized, big stores closed, but local stores, some violated this and took the risk, and there was no food. And many protesters carrying these blankets and tents and food were arrested by the military and by the police. So actually, it was street vendors who violated this order to make living and to like in solidarity, and they actually chanted and sang with the police. But the story shifted and became very complicated with time. That after the uprising, some of them were pressured and threatened by the police and the intelligence and the military intelligence to spy on protesters, and became a complicated story I will not dig into, and how protesters perceive this according to the class range. Many middle class protesters and upper class, they were not happy with, we don't want this. We wanted Tahrir to look clean and beautiful for the West to see this. We don't want to see this street vendor thing. So just a few pictures about this battle was very everywhere. This was the Tahrir, how Tahrir looked like, and in the front of police stations during the uprisings. So we only saw that, we see the million person, we don't see these other background things. So I have many pictures, I only brought few, so for the time's sake, but just an example of it. This is one of the few, not when the square was crowded, just people selling seeds and grilled sweet potatoes and barbecue, or corn, or kushari is like a dish, pasta, a dish made of pasta and lentils with tomato sauce. Just that's what protesters ate while they were not having any. Go quickly to the Tahrir story. So specifically Tahrir was crucial in the Egyptian uprising, as we knew. And again, I will not go into details about things happen outside. I did research in other three major cities. All of them were crucial in the uprising in different senses, but Tahrir specifically was crucial. There's three aspects I'm highlighting here. One is the history of protests. Tahrir, since the British occupation, like British colonialism headquarters were nearby Tahrir Square. So the many major squares, actually since 1919, like all protests and rallies used to go to Tahrir. So people have this memory that when you protest, you go to Tahrir. And there are many other variations too, and that's, I will show some examples. Geographical usefulness, and of course, as people talk about space, space can be enabling, disabling, or can enabling, disabling at the same time. Geopolitical significance. This is from a sit-in 2003, anti-war in Iraq, right, in Tahrir, and actually the site, not only the specific site of Tahrir bringing the idea about Tahrir is constructed as the target of protest, but also actually bringing to memory or the idea about sit-in, like why sit-in in the first place, compared to the French Revolution, people talking about barricades. So barricades were crucial in the uprising, but it was the occupied. So 2003 and in 1972 there was a students' movement sit-in. So the idea about we want to go to Tahrir and we'll do a sit-in until Mubarak leaves. This is a 2003 sit-in that lasted for one day until they evacuated by the police. So this is the geopolitical significance. Tahrir had like just literally near the square at least 10 ministries and the headquarters of the parliament, the cabinet, the Arab League, the headquarters of the Arab League, important hotels, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's literally if you shut down Tahrir, and including the ministries, if I list like not only education and health, but also interior, justice, no parliament. They are not able to meet. So literally when you're talking about Republicans, talking about shutting down the government, this was like people with their bodies shutting the government, there was no government. So that was crucial. Enabling geography, how there is many stories and sophisticated ideas about the police plan A and plan B and all this. I will not go into that, but actually there's many smaller streets. Like the police was able to close all those big avenues leading to Tahrir. So this is the Tahrir. So protesters find a way to maneuver from smaller streets, but later on they battled with the police and they defeated the police. I will show you only one or two pictures about like the significance of space in the people's, the protesters' imagining about the revolution. So when the idea about how we determined to not to leave and we liberated Tahrir, and this is symbolic of our liberation, and will not leave until he leaves. We're willing to die here, and there was planes, F-16 flying low to scare the protesters. Many things, tons of plans to evacuate them by force, but they were not successful. So this is the idea about liberation, and we are here. We liberated this land, and this will be the new Egypt starting from here. Tons of narratives about this. So people were this is previous protests before the uprising. The people not literally can't move. There is no rally, no walking rallies. You're only sitting on the stairs in a press syndicate or lawyers bar association or something, and then you just chant, and for 100 protesters, like 5,000 soldiers, and you can't even reach the public and so forth. This is only a few months before the revolution, 6 months. This is a protest after the death of the blogger the famous Facebook page, We Are All outside. So this is in the front of the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Justice. It's actually literally there were 50 persons or less, and I knew many of them personally, and he was mocking about really this is where we were, and then we had revolution. So there's other things about the physicality of Tahrir and the life in the camp. I will not talk about these, but there's many things about bathrooming and living in the tents and shifting from day to day. So I'll show you last two pictures, and then I'll just end with one thought, like final thought. It's a question, because I am thinking about it while in the process of thinking to expand my work into a book, to update my research for what happened after the revolution. Tahrir is symbolic and geopolitical, and all of this significant. Tahrir was, there's tons of, not only there was anti-protest laws and many other things if you're following the news, but actually protesters were banned from going to Tahrir. It became a military zone. That's only proved the new military regime in Egypt was only proved Sisi, who was the Secretary of Defense and became the president, were allowed to celebrate his presidency. So it was reversing, using this site is our site. This is the occupying Tahrir. This is also by Tahrir, famous wall that was site of incredible revolutionary graffiti, literally, but this is by the American University in Cairo campus, which is by Tahrir, the old campus. So there are many stories about the space. So this is actually my thoughts, like what I'm thinking now, the general question for me that I am sharing with you, I don't have an answer. And it's a puzzle. And many protesters and many commentators and activists were saying, and for the few months after the revolution, for the first year, were saying that if there was one single gain that we got from the revolution, it was opening political public space. There's tons of unions, political parties, protests, non-stop, social media. It was like chaotic liberation environment. And it's here. We are the politics. We are the government. There is no government. And now, activists and commentators, they are saying exactly the opposite. After 2013, where the so-called coup revolution, half coup, half revolution, we call it whatever, but I think it's a coup, but it's a complicated, and when we think about temporality. But the idea, they're saying exactly the opposite. They're saying the current regime is shutting down political space in Egypt. Literally, there is no whatsoever protests allowed. People have life sentence for violating anti-protest laws. Some of them are leading protesters. Tons of survey, like some deals with American corporations and others about the government, with the Egyptian Ministry of Interior, making a bet was like some $100 million agreement about surveillance and expanding of surveillance in social media. And there's no real formal politics. So if you think the street politics is closed, and social media, really you're probably it's becoming like a chat room, people are just yearning and complaining and nostalgic about what happened, or bittering, or it's not the open space. And also formal politics, there is no formal politics, there is no parliament, there is nothing. There is only a military ruler, and the legislator is the military ruler. In other words, it's a dramatic shift between the wide open political space and now it's closed. And how can we explain that? And I'm trying to talk with people, I'm thinking about, it's my question that I am thinking, like how it's not easy to answer when you say that the military shut down things, because all this revolutionary euphoria, power of the people, streets, and all so forth, and then really, and all this collective emotional transformations that happen from time to time, from this time. So I will end here. Thank you.